I wasn't even discharged when my pilot husband divorced me and married a flight attendant. Don't come back, he texted. I replied with a screenshot, $30,000. Minutes later, his calls came shaking with panic. The hospital wristband was still on my arm when the text came through. I stared at my phone. The room smelled like disinfectant and dying flowers. Don't come back. This house doesn't support the unemployed. My husband, Daniel Carter, commercial airline pilot, always in uniform, always in control. I'd collapsed from exhaustion 3 days ago. He knew I was here. He knew I was alone. He texted me anyway. I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. I just felt numb, unemployed. That's what he called me. I'd resigned from my executive position 6 months ago, walked away from a corner office and a six-figure salary. He thought it meant I'd failed. He never asked why. Then another message came through. A photo. Daniel standing way too close to a woman in a flight attendant uniform. Her hand on his arm, his smile wide, comfortable, like she'd been there for a while. No explanation, no apology. He didn't need to explain. I recognized her from his crew photos. Young, pretty, uncomplicated. The kind of woman who looked at a pilot's uniform and saw a hero, not a man. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. The nurse came in. Is your family coming to pick you up tomorrow? I smiled. No. She looked confused but didn't push. I'd supported Daniel's career for 8 years. Moved to 3 different cities for him. Spent countless nights alone while he flew international routes. Handled every bill, every investment, every tax document because he was too busy. Made compromises I called love. And he'd thrown me away the second he thought I was worthless. The next morning, I was discharged. I sat in the back of an Uber, scrolling through emails I hadn't checked in days. One notification caught my eye. Final confirmation from the private equity firm. The acquisition was complete. My heart started pounding. I opened my banking app with shaking fingers. The number looked fake, surreal, like someone had added too many zeros by mistake. $30,000. Clean, undeniable, under my name alone. 3 years ago, I'd co-founded a logistics startup with 2 former colleagues. We'd built it quietly, carefully. My name stayed off all public records at my request. I wanted anonymity, not attention. I'd already lived in the shadow of someone else's career once. I wasn't eager to do it again. While Daniel flew planes and collected compliments, I was negotiating contracts across time zones, sleeping 4 hours a night, learning to make impossible numbers work. The stress that put me in the hospital, it wasn't from weakness, it was from carrying too much in silence. Daniel saw me home more often after my resignation, saw me tired, quiet. He assumed I was drifting, failing, becoming dependent on his pilot's salary. He had no idea I'd stepped away to close the biggest deal of my life. To him, unemployed meant worthless. He was so catastrophically wrong, it was almost funny. I stared at the screenshot of my bank account, $30 million. Then I looked back at his text. This house doesn't support the unemployed. The house he was so proud of. The house he'd just kicked me out of. The house that was legally in a trust I controlled. I took a deep breath and I sent him the screenshot. No message, no explanation, no context, just the number. My phone started buzzing immediately. 1 call, 2 calls, 3, 4, voicemails piling up, text messages flooding in like a dam had burst. I watched them come in, one after another, and I smiled for the first time in days. After 5 minutes of straight calls, I finally answered. Evelyn, we need to talk. His voice was completely different, shaking, thin, desperate, not the confident pilot anymore, not the man who dismissed me from a hospital bed. About what? I asked calmly. Is that real? It is. Silence, heavy, choking. I could practically hear his brain scrambling. Why didn't you tell me? He stammered. Why didn't you say something? You didn't ask. I let that sink in. Let him remember every time he'd brushed off my exhaustion. Every time he'd assumed I was home because I had nowhere better to be. Look, he said quickly, the marriage has been strained, but the divorce papers you filed will proceed exactly as written. I interrupted. No revisions, no negotiations. Evelyn, wait, the house you told me not to come back to? It's in a trust I control. The investment account you bragged about to your pilot friends, funded almost entirely by returns I generated. You didn't just lose a wife, Daniel. You lost position. I made a mistake. You made a choice. He started talking faster. Apologies tumbling over excuses. The flight attendant meant nothing. He'd been under pressure. We could work this out. He loved me. He'd always loved me.
Full story on channel link below.